Alrighty, baby. Episode 3, everyone. Today we have a special hunk of a guest, Banjo. Banjo, tell the people at home something about yourself.
What's up, everyone? I'm a big friend of Richard and Edog. It's nice to meet everyone. I've known these kids since I guess I would say freshman year high school. I started hanging out with Jones, as some of you may know, Jose, my cousin, and I just got to be closer friends with both Edog and Richard through Jones. So happy to be part of the group.
God
Right,
damn,
that's what's up.
that was a wholesome intro. I was expecting something just like, my name's Banjo,
Sorry.
what up? I got a question for you guys. It's gonna be very was it polarizing? Is that the word? I don't know. Controversial. So hopefully you can answer it. But I have seen recently this idea on the Facebooks, people spreading it, that apparently it's wrong to say that you understand an issue.
What?
Yeah, like, it's basically you have to accept the fact that you'll never understand something. If you claim to understand something, it's oppressive. It's part of your privilege, I guess. But I'm kind of confused as to why. Why is it wrong to say you can understand an issue?
Yeah, I don't know. That doesn't sound. Yeah, I don't know. It doesn't sound right to me. It sounds like people just kind of playing into a victim mentality and just being like, nah, you don't get it. It's
Well,
on me, But I understand what they're trying to say. They're trying to say, like, you have not experienced what I've experienced. And that's
Yeah.
true. I haven't. But that doesn't mean, as a human being, I'm completely detached. That's not the way it works.
Banjo, what were you gonna say?
I was just gonna say, like, it sounds like more of a, in a broader sense, just like a
Hmm.
more philosophical thing,
Yeah.
Because what's that saying? I think it's like either Plato or Socrates. It's like the only thing I do know is I don't know anything, right?
Hmm.
So maybe it's just going into like, the only thing that you know is your perception of things. It's what you've experienced in your time, on Earth, and you can't really say that you grasp the entirety of a concept or an idea when you're only one person, you're only one perspective. You can't really say that you understand something. But
Hmm.
maybe I'm just you know
I would agree
broadly.
with that. It's just
But
that
it's not
it's
even that it's not even that lofty. We're not talking about grand philosophical
yeah.
concepts. We're talking about maybe someone having a personal struggle and then another person empathizing, and then they
Yeah.
say to the other person, "No, you can't empathize with me." And you can. You
So is
don't
it
have to have an identical experience to be able to reach out to a person.
is that the context, E-Dog? Like, is it like,
Well, the
you know,
context, of course, is about all the protests that are going on and
um,
the experience of police brutality and basically just being discriminated against. But I
huh.
would agree if it was like that grand thing where it's like, oh, it's impossible for us to know anything or everything. But this is about like being specific topics and you not being able to say that you understand it because it's then like oppressive in some way. Which I think the same
That's
would apply. Like you have some idea, you've experienced hardships before. I don't think it's wrong to say like, "Oh, I understand. I feel where you're coming from."
it sounds kind of like a gap in people's interpretations.
Mm.
Like, if I'm telling you I understand, it's not so much that I'm saying that I understand your predicament. It's more so that I want to kind of empathize, I
Mm.
guess. I feel like a lot of people say I understand to kind of help them kind of grieve or make sense of something. But I mean, yeah, I guess you could make the argument that it's overly stated. And people kind of just use it whimsically, like, I understand,
Mm.
but in reality, you might not. You just kind of want to, empathize.
Yeah.
But that's not the person's intention. I guarantee it.
Right.
99% of the time, if somebody is saying, I understand, they're not trying to say, yeah, I know what it means to be a black person in America if they're a white person. That's not what they're
Mm.
saying. They're not trying to detract from what you've experienced. It's exactly what Benji just said. It's them saying, look, if you need someone, it's you like kind of lending yourself or
Mhm.
reaching out to a person. It's not you trying to claim that you have this identical experience. It's just you offering
Yeah.
something.
Mm.
And at the very least at the very base of it, you can still empathize on. I understand that you feel angry, that you feel frustrated, all those things that everyone kind of feels. Frustrations, stress, whatever it may be. You can empathize with that, but you can't really say that you understand. Whatever niche the topic is. Whether it
Yeah.
be like you said, police brutality or whatever. At the very basic level, you can say, I understand because everyone's been frustrated, everyone's been angry at one point
Mm.
or another, and you kind of understand that at the very least.
I was
But
kind of
now
wondering.
people, oh no, go ahead.
I was kind of wondering where these kind of statements come from, because like
All right.
I don't think it's about like acknowledging that there's like a lot of issues that we can't understand. It almost seems like a way that's just meant to like stop certain people from commenting on an issue. Like it's like, "Oh, you're this skin color. You can't talk about this. You don't know what it's like."
Yeah, it enables groupthink. It's just like, we don't want our mindsets to be challenged because we're stubborn and we know that we're right, type of thing.
Hmm.
There's a lot of that for sure. And I think that's what the people on the other side of the argument are doing. They're just like creating this
Mhm. It's ammo.
yeah, and they're acting like the person is trying to say they've had the same experience when they know for a fact that's not what the person is saying. They're just kind of making a dig just for whatever.
Yeah.
They're not trying to say they've had the same experience. They're just trying to empathize and say that they support you. But then people purposely go out of their way to say, no, no, no,
Yeah.
you're a straight white male. There's no way you can understand or comprehend it at all. When that's not what the person is literally saying. They're
Mhm.
just saying, I support you. But people like to get bent out of shape and pretend to be offended about everything now. So
Yeah. I also worry like even if like this movement, like the ideas behind it are good, we shouldn't be beating people down. We do have to redistribute the budget for different things. But the way they're going about it, where it's like just one person's or one group's ideas, like you would think the better way to do it would be to like have some give and take. Like there's an opposition to the movement, so like don't you have to get their point of view as well instead of just like making a blanket statement where like, oh, all of your ideas are ridiculous, we're going to replace them with what we think is the right way of doing things. I feel like that would just like lead to the opposite of extreme with any certain amount of time.
mhm.
Yeah, I agree. And that's why, decisions like that should never be made in a vacuum.
Hmm.
It should always be, there should always be some sort of compromise or some sort of, democratic debate or,
Yeah.
you want to challenge a perspective in order to come up with something that everyone can kind of agree on,
Yeah.
which is hard, especially right now. Especially like, for example, with the whole defund police thing, like
Hmm.
everyone has different interpretations of what that means. And everyone has polarizing interpretations, so it's just hard.
That's what me and Richard were talking about last time, where when I first heard about it, I saw it from people that were basically saying, just like erase the police entirely, replace them with something else. And that I thought, well, that's
Yeah.
stupid. But then I found out that there's another side to it, or maybe in a completely different movement, where they just want to like redistribute how much money goes to the police because it's just too much. It's
Mm.
more than really makes them effective. And that I was like,
That's
that's
primarily what it is. It's primarily
Yeah.
reallocating funds, and a lot of other people are completely misinterpreting it
Yeah.
as eliminating police, and that's not what it is. The abolishment is primarily about just altering the funding for public law enforcement.
I will say though, like there's still a lot of people that are kind of really radical in that
mm,
idea, and there are still plenty of people that are saying like they believe in the whole kind of anarchist state that like
yeah,
there shouldn't be a police force or something like that. But you guys are both right. Like it's just another way to think about it is just like how much we kind of rely on police and
mm,
all the different things that police do in our
mm,
society, or in American society. Um, like anything from changing a tire to you know going to someone who's potentially OD'd.
yeah,
Um, those aren't the type of things that police might be best for.
mm,
And so the whole movement kind of goes towards let's give some of these resources to those entities that are better equipped to handle these situations, like social workers,
mm,
EMTs, and stuff like that. And so while there are a lot of those radicalized kind of groups that think that we should abolish the police, the
mm,
majority of the movement is based on, like Richard was saying, redistributing resources and finding a better, optimal way where police can, serve the public.
mm,
But people need to realize that reallocating funds is not going to alter systematic racism.
yeah,
It's not.
Yeah, that's another thing.
They need to change the screening process for who becomes an officer. They need to crack down on people and really examine them thoroughly, how they respond in certain situations emotionally. Like they need to really look at a person developmentally. They need to have better testing before someone is allowed to join the force. That's the
mm,
real issue because people with a particular type of mentality or a particular personality type are attracted to this position of power. And how many of those people end up being, just racist morons who eventually abuse this position?
yeah.
So, yes, altering the funding is a good idea, but practically, that's not going to really help the issue of systematic racism. We need to change the screening process for how these people even get into law enforcement.
Or just start tearing stuff down and pretend like we never had racism. That could be the other. That's the new solution. You're behind, Richard.
You
Talking about things
revisionists.
is over. We're
You
now
got to
gonna.
revision the
Yeah,
history books.
That's it. Get rid of the statues,
yeah.
rewrite the history books,
Is
delete the
that going
movies from
on
HBO.
in Phoenix?
What is?
Are there any statues being removed, or are things really
Uh,
going down in Phoenix?
no. Well, there's one hot issue with a statue at the Wesley Bowles Plaza, but it's not as like because in other southern states you have like actual monuments of these like revered Confederate
Mm,
soldiers, and you don't have all of that. You don't have any of that actually in Arizona. There is one kind of. It's not even like a statue. It's just like a big. It's the shape of Arizona, and
mm.
it just says it's dedicated to the people who lost their lives in the Confederacy or something like that.
Well, yeah, there was a
Um,
Confederate fort in Flagstaff.
yeah, and
There's a
so
cemetery out there.
it's not like it is in other southern states.
Well, I've seen that it's expanding. Oh, I guess maybe they might include this in racism, but it's expanding to like they're removing the rioters and folks were tearing down a statue in New Mexico of some like conquistador, just like a historical figure that I guess
Oh, right.
discovered that area or whatever. So it's like it's expanding to just like all points of history, I guess. I don't know what the I'm just confused. Like how far does it go? It started with police brutality and then it expands into getting rid of historical monuments, rewriting stuff. It's just
Yeah, I saw something like that in Alaska It's like they're tearing down. I think it was Christopher Columbus. I think it was Alaska.
Hmm.
But yeah, not. I mean, I guess Christopher Columbus is more controversial.
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah, they've been trying to eliminate Columbus Day as a holiday for probably the last 10 years. I remember seeing petitions for
Yeah.
that in 2010.
Why?
Right.
I actually don't know much about Christopher Columbus. What is it
Well,
that he's
just
done?
because like really looking at what he did was not
Was he an
great.
asshole? Like a really bad
Just
dude?
the way he treated indigenous people. Yeah.
Hmm.
hmm Well, I think a lot of it too is like changing the way we think about these people because I don't know. I feel like in schools, especially, you're kind of taught to think of these people as like these great explorers and risk takers, and they set out to like find a new land. But it's not really. I don't think history was like that.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know much about Christopher Columbus, but I'm willing to say that he was probably not the nicest guy, or he shouldn't be as revered as he is, or whatever. I think he was actually like a crook or something, isn't that right?
Hmm.
In like Spain or something like that. And so he just kind of left or something like that. He was banished.
I seriously know nothing about Christopher. I just know
Oh,
what we learn in grade school of like, oh, he discovered America, and then you find out
yeah,
later, oh, he didn't discover America. It was like some
He
exactly.
other,
got lost.
yeah.
Yeah, he got lost and he found some land, and eventually that land was, colonialized or whatever,
another
colonized.
another thing that maybe I don't know if we talked about it before, but it's something that I've been trying to understand. Well, no, I take that back. I wasn't trying to understand anything. I'm not racist. I was trying to listen. Something less racist. The why is saying I understand some people say it and they are just racist mofugs. But why is saying that you think all lives matter so wrong?
Because it detracts from what's currently happening. We know all lives matter. We're not talking about all lives right now. We're talking about systemic racism.
Hmm.
We're talking about people of color being preyed upon.
Mm-hmm.
So, yes, all lives matter. We know that. You don't really need to say it. But black Americans are being targeted. So, that's why people get upset when you say, yeah, but all lives matter. It's like, yeah, we know that, but there's a bigger issue right now.
I get that because I also don't get part of the like I've told you before. I don't really. You'll never see me doing hashtag Black Lives Matter, even though like I agree with the ideas of it. So I was thinking like I feel like there's some people that are saying that because they're not part of like this movement mentality. They're just
Mm-hmm.
saying like, "Oh, I don't know. I've always thought that." Like me, if you ask me, I would also say like, "Oh, yeah, I guess all lives matter." I don't really differentiate. And then I also don't think that like I guess there is the issue of detracting, but I don't know how acknowledging other issues really lessens one issue. Like you could focus on an issue and still be
Yeah.
aware of other ones. But
Yeah,
like
I agree.
the issue that I asked one person and they gave me I think it's like an Instagram sort of example of the whole house burning situation where like you're some person there's a cul-de-sac of houses and some dude's like, "Oh, my house is on fire." And then the person who's the neighbor, their house isn't on fire. They're like, "Oh, well what about my house?" Trying to say like, "Oh, it's just this group's issues."
Mm-hmm.
But I disagreed with that because I thought that there were multiple houses on fire. Like, yeah, there is the issue of racial discrimination, police brutality against people of color. But there's also the house of migrant workers being mistreated. There's also inequality for the Asian minority groups in the country. There's white people who are also suffering. It's like there's a whole other group of issues that I don't think.
Flint, Michigan still doesn't have clean water.
Yeah, and I feel like
Mhm.
acknowledging those issues doesn't take away from the one that we're focusing on right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. I agree with that. I think that is true. Saying other things does not really detract, but the reason why people are kind of shunning the whole all lives matter comments
Hmm.
is because those comments are primarily being made by just like extremist
Yeah.
Trump supporters. Idiots, you know.
Yeah. But then I still don't feel like that's fair. Cuz like yeah, there are just because a Trump supporter says all lives matter doesn't mean that everyone that says it is a Trump supporter, believes the same
No,
things
of
that that
course
one
not.
dude. I feel it's another way to just like cut someone out of the conversation.
Hmm.
So I guess I don't like that side of it. Banjo, is this something you could comment on?
No, I kind of agree with what Richard was saying. Um, yeah, I don't have much to say. I mean, yeah, it does detract from the larger picture at hand, and I think a lot of it is political too. You know, it's
Hmm.
what's on the agenda, but what it's really about like what people are willing to mobilize
Hmm.
about. You know, it's you know, something like the Black Lives Matter movement. We've seen that in the '60s, and you know, the civil rights movement, and stuff is still not, you know, right.
Yeah.
And so it's just like what's on the political agenda, I guess. What's on people's minds that they're willing to go out and do something about it, you know.
Hmm. Well, here's an idea I had also of people don't like the all lives matter idea. It kind of leads into my idea of like a cultural identity. Because wouldn't it be better to work more towards a goal that is focused on like not a specific group of like I guess race, I don't know, cuz race is such a weird word. Like
Race is a cultural construct. It's
yeah.
fake. We made it up.
So like at least like in my little understanding of it like my gut feeling is that it would be better to focus on all of us like instead of a group of people somehow in the future. Not right now. There is an issue going on with a certain group.
You know, race isn't a thing in Star Wars.
Is
Everyone
that
just kind of
is that a
like
legit thing?
you have these aliens and like you have those aliens, and notice there's never any sort of discrimination. I mean, not that I don't know. There's some people that might say otherwise, but
Hmm.
you know, maybe it's something that happens with time that you can start having those discussions where you know it's more of a global thing. It's not just a group of people or an identity or a construct of a people. It's more of just
Hmm.
like people, just you know, just one thing, just you know. But I don't know. We'll never get there probably.
Well,
Pie in the sky.
it confuses me because I guess just my idea. It's hard for me to get behind like movements that focus on one. What would you call ethnic group or racial group? Because like it's still a new idea for me. It's not something that I kind of thought about until I moved to Japan. But when I was living, and I'm sure Banjo, maybe Richard, I don't know what Richard is, but in like the U.S. when they would ask us, oh, like what are you?
I'm
I'd
Italian
always,
and Puerto Rican.
oh damn, I would always answer like, oh, Mexican American,
Yeah.
something like that. And then later on in life, it turns out like I'm like a quarter Blackfoot, so I'm like, oh, am I supposed to be? I'm Native American, Mexican American, something like that. And it wasn't until I
Well,
got here that the kids at school started asking me like, "Oh, where are you from?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm from America, Mexican American." They're like, "Oh, were you born in Mexico?" And I'd be like, "No." I was like, "Were your parents born in Mexico?" No. Like I really have no legit cultural connection to Mexico. So I
Right.
just started like saying, "Well, I guess if I'm anything, I just feel American," which is like nothing really. It's just an idea. I don't know. So it's hard for me to like really think of
yeah.
I'm with the Mexicans, I'm with the Native Americans,
Mm.
something like that.
Well, that comes down to the breakdown of ethnicity versus nationality.
Hmm.
because I'm also part Polish.
Yeah.
So if you're talking about ethnicities, that's a different thing. But if you're talking about nationality, I mean, I live in America, so I'm
Yeah.
American. So there's different ways to kind of approach that.
So then, is that an issue that really just Americans have because there's so many different types of people?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, there's a good mix of people in the UK, but yeah, I think in America we have a larger, it's such a greater combination of different places that people come from.
Hmm.
It's a melting pot.
Oh, you just had to say it.
That's so American. That's racist, Banjo.
Why? Is that bad to say that?
Well, I know.
We're
What
gonna
would you
get
guys?
canceled now. Benji, you're gonna get canceled on Twitter.
What is your
Good
guys'
thing.
like
Joke's on
cultural
you.
connections to anything?
Huh.
Like Banjo, would you say you're Mexican, Mexican American?
Um, Let me think of, I don't know. Because the thing is when I get that question asked on like, forms that I have to fill out, it usually just says like white, and then there's
Hmm.
an option for non-Hispanic or Hispanic.
Yeah.
And so, I just white, Hispanic. I don't. I wish that people didn't really focus that much on ethnicity, I guess, because like Richard's saying, that stuff is kind of just like a construct. Just,
No, I said race is a construct. Race
Yeah.
is not the same as ethnicity.
oh, well, I mean, that's what I mean. It's just like, well, okay, so what would you say Chicano is?
Oh, I'm so confused by that. Like some people get offended if you call them
Yeah.
Hispanic, and they're like, "Oh, I'm Chicano." But is Chicano like an American person that has Mexican roots or something?
Yeah, exactly. I think that's what it is. It's like you weren't born in Mexico, but you don't have like can you know you're not born in Mexico, but you're still Mexican.
Yeah.
Your parents are Mexican. You're I guess a second generation,
Hmm.
but that's a good segue into like what when people feel like pride
Hmm.
or those sorts of things. Like that's not something that you have a connection to. Like you can't really control,
Yeah.
where you were born, but yet people have so much pride about being Mexican or being, white or, whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hate that idea. That's so stupid.
Why?
Well, because you can't be proud of that. Like when people say white pride, brown pride, whatever, like you can't be proud of that. You had no say in that.
Not
Like,
something you
well,
earned.
yeah, you can only be
Yeah.
proud of like something that you did or something that you worked for. You can be proud of like saving up a bunch of money and buying a car. You can be proud of a song that you wrote. You can be proud of something that you accomplished. You didn't accomplish anything by being white or being brown or being black. Like
Hmm.
what? So your soul was floating around and you chose to like be born as a white baby or a brown baby?
Yeah.
Like you did not choose that.
Why is that
You
a
were just
thing?
born into it. So how could you be proud of it? You didn't create it.
So then what would be, because like saying, "Oh, you shouldn't be proud of the fact that you are this." It sounds bad, but I don't.
You
There has
shouldn't
to.
be. It's a tremendous misconception that people have that you can be proud of an identity that is just an accident of birth.
Hmm. So then what would we be? Should we just exist without any kind of label? Just be like
Yeah, be proud of
humans?
who you are as a person. If you are a good person, if you're a nice person, if you work to, conduct yourself in a certain way, you can be proud of that. You can be proud of the things that you accomplish and the things
Hmm.
that, you're mindful of and that you really make an effort to be a part of, things like that. But you can't
Mhm.
be proud of something that you didn't do at all or had no say in. Like I said, if it's an accident of birth, how are you proud of that? You
Yeah,
didn't
that
do
sounds
anything.
strange.
One thing that I'll throw in though is like you can be proud of like customs and maybe
Hmm.
traditions. I think, if there's something that your family does or something that's brought from your culture or where you come from. What do you think about that, Richard? Do you think you can be proud for, like, I don't know, maybe quinceañeras, for example, like,
Hmm.
or certain things that people do that's different from other groups of people.
No, not really, because you didn't make it up. It's pre-existing. So what, like Jewish people are proud that they smash a cup at their wedding? Like that person getting married didn't create that.
I
That's a
guess it's
tradition that's pre-existing. So
yeah.
you can't have like cultural traditions that you say you're,
Mm.
you know, you
I,
again, you didn't have a hand in that.
right. No, I agree, but I feel like a lot of people just kind of share pride from their experiences that are kind of esoteric, that only
Hmm.
a small group of people really understand, and
Hmm.
so you're able to, like, experience that with family or relatives, whatever, and so you value that a lot as a person, and I guess you could say that people can feel prideful over those shared experiences and whatnot.
Yeah, I wouldn't want a world where there's no like culture. You have to have some sort of pride in what like your group of people does, like some sort of festival or something, because I think it adds to making people unique.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. I'm not saying that you should
I
eliminate that. You should take joy in it, but going
Yeah.
around saying that you're proud to be something that you did not create, like to
Well,
me,
I
that's
think
the nonsensical part.
maybe it's not pride. Like the way I was thinking of it is maybe it's the idea that whatever it is that you're proud of is better than this other thing.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I guess at that point it just comes down to an argument of semantics, just
Yeah.
using the word
Yeah.
proud or the
Yeah.
concept of pride in conjunction with that.
Hmm.
Um, but it is a good thing to take joy in your heritage, in your culture, in your traditions. It is a good thing. I just think that the misappropriation of that word
Hmm.
kind of makes things a
Yeah.
bit odd.
I feel like we're like a long ways away from any of that. Actually, this is a completely different topic, but something that I was thinking about that I am it has to do with the conspiracy theory that Richard was bringing up, the Smedley, where there was also a side of it where that Smedley dude, they wanted him to basically make a little military to force what was it, Roosevelt? Was that the
I
president at
think
the time,
so.
Richard?
Yeah.
Like if
Which
he
Roosevelt?
didn't
FDR,
FDR, if he didn't want to go
right?
along with this gang's wishes, they wanted him to build a little military to basically force the president to do what they wanted or take him out.
Yeah, it was essentially going to be like a mutiny.
Yeah. And what I was thinking is with how crazy Trump is, do you think there's any possibility, because you kind of see him doing that in an open way where he pronounces like these MAGA nights where he wants his little group of supporters to come in and keep people from protesting against him, whatever. Do you think it's possible that maybe when these elections come around, if he loses, is there any chance to where he could be like, nah, I don't want to go? Because he knows
Oh,
he has this radical group of homeboys that's going to come in there.
maybe not that. Maybe not him refusing to go, but supporters not
Hmm.
allowing it to happen or just inciting absolute chaos if
Yeah.
he leaves office. And then, I mean, he could almost be charged with inciting civil war at that point. If something
Hmm.
like that happens where all of the, whatever Trump supporters take to the streets and go ape,
Hmm.
who knows? But
Because
yeah,
I was
that's a
imagining
scary
it
thought.
kind of happened with the Rona protesters when they went out to all the city halls with all their guns and stuff. Like I could see the same thing happening if Trump loses. They get pissed off, and I mean I don't think he's gonna lose, but if he
Hmm.
lost,
You don't think he's gonna lose?
no, I don't think so.
Yeah, me neither. Unfortunately, I think we're screwed. It made me mad because when I look at candidates, um, I mean, when there was like 43 people, like I go on their Wikipedia page, I read about these people, and I really try to be informed about them as a person, which I know like I probably like 85% of the country doesn't even do that. They just
Yeah.
see red and blue and then they go, that guy said something that I liked. And then they just like go with that person. They have no idea what kind of policy this person backs. They don't know anything.
Hmm.
And on the CNN website right now, if you look at like 2020 presidential candidates, it's just Biden and Trump. And then it lists like the other 22 people who had their campaigns suspended, or just like they were voted out in primaries, like the Democratic primaries previously, whatever it was. But they just show Biden and Trump. There's nothing else. Like they don't show what's his name, like Jacob Hornberg. There's no independent. There's nobody else. They act like those people don't even exist. And I mean, Hornberg might be out now. And I'm not saying I completely support him. I'm just using him as an example.
Yeah.
I've never heard of that.
But
Hornberg?
Yeah, I don't think most people pay attention to
because
like
nobody pays attention. People just see the red and blue. They don't look into the other parties. They don't look into libertarians. They don't look into Green Party. They don't look into these other things, and they just follow this two-party bullshit. And that's why we keep ending up with what we get every 4 years. That's why we keep getting maniacs like, Trump, and not that, our previous people have all been maniacs, but you know what I'm getting at. Just
moving in that direction.
Yeah, and just the way we treat political campaign, the way we treat presidential election. So yeah, I just thought it was ridiculous looking at the CNN site and seeing the way they list the candidates, and they just make it this red versus blue.
I don't even think it would be a big issue. Like, I think red versus blue could work, but we've turned it into something where you have to be 100% blue, 100% red. Like, if you have a Democrat that sort of mentions a little something about, oh, the Republicans have a good idea, he's like immediately, oh, he's a radical, he's an undercover right-winger.
Yep.
Like, they're so strict now on what you can believe that I think it leads to this, both sides just being extreme.
Yeah. You either have to be a leftist extreme or you have to be a rightist extreme, and that's it.
What were you going to say, though, Banjo?
I was going to say a part of the problem, too, is just like the what they call is the fourth branch of the government, which is the media. And when you only have media that represents, the bullshit two-party thing, then people are just going to get farther into their niches, and there's not going to be any middle ground. So I think the media has a lot to do with it, and just how people take their news.
Yeah.
It's also tricky. What do you have to have, a 15-state majority to be on the presidential ballot?
Oh,
so that's why so many of these people, But that's good too, because then it weeds out the really weird people. Like Vermin Supreme, like him running for president every single year.
Vermin Supreme.
Who's that?
Yeah, he's the dude that wears the boot on his head.
That's hilarious.
He does it like every year as a joke. He runs for president all the time, and he's a maniac. But I get that there's these systems in place, because then there's people like that who will quote unquote run for president.
And it's just about where the money goes. And if you have a system where people kind of only have these two platforms, and there's the RNC, the DNC, whatever, and these are mechanisms for obtaining money, for getting all these funds that are able to better prop these people, then that in of itself is a bad system, because you're kind of just propelling the two platform thing. And there's way better ideas, there's way better
I think it restricts it to who has money instead of who has good ideas, who can actually improve the country.
Yeah. And why can't those resources be spread to ideas that are outside of, just the two-party system,
Yeah.
you know.
Well, then what? I guess I didn't ask, but why do you think you seem to doubt that Trump was going to win, Banjo?
Me?
Hmm.
It's just the thing is, it's like the stock market. It's just like no one knows what's
Yeah.
going to happen. And I would argue that right now is a really bad time for Trump, just because of everything that's happening. I would argue that if Biden picks a black woman as
Hmm.
his VP, I think that would strongly just like propel him into beating Trump. But with everything that's going on with like the whole Black Lives Matter movement, the whole defund police, there's people coming out. I don't know if you guys are aware of John Bolton, his previous like
Hmm.
His book coming out.
national security advisor. Yeah, he has a book coming out. Trump has a niece, someone within the family who has her PhD in, I forgot what it was, but very smart woman, and she's coming out with like a tell-all book about
Hmm.
Trump, and they're trying to like kind of censor her right now. So they're trying to censor both of them actually, Bolton and Trump's niece, so that these
Jeez.
books don't come out. But there's just a lot going. And then just like the whole publicity thing with him. I don't know if you guys heard about him going into that bunker
Oh yeah, yeah.
when there was protests and whatnot. And so there's other countries too. Like there's a report that China is kind of warming up to the idea that if Trump is elected again, then China will flourish again and will be able to like take advantage of Trump's weakness or America's weakness because of Trump.
Yeah.
So there's all these different things, but at the same time, if a whole new, and that's the thing about American government is the whole changes in government and the whole change of the institution, right? Whenever there's a new party, a whole new agenda, a whole new cabinet put in place, it's just a huge departure from what was already in place. It's going to be trouble. It's going to be hard.
Yeah.
It's going to be rocky for a little bit. So yeah, that's definitely a good argument to say that Trump is probably going to stay. Right now is we're in real turbulent times, and I could only imagine how a change in governments, a change in political party can just kind of contribute to the mess.
Hmm. I have my doubts just because he seems so immune to things that would like just destroy any other
Yeah,
president. He's
that's what.
just
Yeah,
like,
that's the thing too.
and then like again, it'd be the media, like where the election really starts heating up, and
Mhm.
normally you'd have the ability to call out like the worst aspects of someone that's running for president. But the fact that they've been doing that every single day since he got elected, like what more do you have to use against Trump? He's basically what people think of him has already been established.
Mhm.
I doubt there's going to be some big eye-opening moment where people are like, "Oh, you know what? You're right. This guy is bad."
Yeah, I mean the impeachment amounted to nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah. There have been so many things that were, I kind of just, especially when he was first running, like this guy's done for.
Hmm.
He's not coming back. The audio tapes of whatever it is that he said, or
Yeah.
his different comments on things, his tweeting, like I've always just thought there's no chance. But
Yeah.
time and time again, that I'm proved wrong.
He's unstoppable apparently.
Is the Senate
Mhm.
Republican majority right now?
Yeah, yeah. The House right now is
Which
Democrat.
is another
Yeah, exactly.
issue.
That's how back in '08 when Obama was elected, I think he had control of both
He had
houses, the
all
House
three. Yeah.
and
Oh
the
yeah.
Senate.
Wow.
Yeah, and so that's how he was able to get past his Affordable Care Act.
Yeah.
And the thing is, like, what do you guys remember the last thing Trump was able to pass? And that's partly due because the houses are so polarized.
Mhm.
Nothing's going to get voted through at the House. Nothing's, and so if it goes to the Senate, it's a whole nother thing, and
But
it's
he's a
just hard.
master at pretending like he's passed a whole hell of a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. Always tweeting about all the things he's done for America to make it greater.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
But that's the other issue is like everyone gets focused on the presidential elections and then they
Mhm.
skip out on the Senate and the House.
Yeah.
And then you win one of them, which just ends up to whoever's president doing nothing because you're not going to get anything
Mhm.
through.
Yeah, I think people should focus more on local government too. Like that doesn't get enough attention. Just like who your mayor is, who your council is, state government too. Like who your governor is. People don't really pay attention, and that has a lot of power, I guess, in the grander scheme of things.
Hmm. There's also that. I guess that's another reason, another doubt I have of why I think Trump's going to win. Like you were saying, I think if Biden chooses like a black woman as his running mate, that'd
Mhm.
like assure his victory. But
Yeah,
I still I don't have any faith in the people that would sell. Like people that would be in all support of that. They're
yeah,
like, at least from what I see, they're the guys on Twitter, on Instagram that talk about how much they want this, how much they hate Trump. But then when voting season comes around, oh, I forgot. I was at home. I didn't get to vote.
I don't vote.
Yeah, votes don't matter.
Yeah, exactly.
Same thing with like Bernie Sanders, where I thought like, oh, judging by like his support on social media, like he's got
Mhm.
it this year because there are tons of people supporting him. Time to vote, no one goes out and votes. It's just
Mhm.
I just don't have faith in the youth, in the people that could inspire change, promote change.
That's also kind of messed up, though, that saying, if Biden gets a black woman,
Yeah,
because then people are just voting
Yeah,
based on race and gender. That's it. Like, again,
right.
they are not informed about policy. It's just looking at a person and they're like, that guy or that woman,
Yeah.
and that's it.
To be honest, it's horrible, but it is a popularity contest, and
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I wish it was never like that. But yeah, you're absolutely right. It's a shame.
I feel like in this election, you just got to accept that, but work towards changing it. Like, we
Yeah.
can't have it constantly be just popularity, identity politics, the guy checking the
Money.
boxes for what we support, and then, oh, we vote on that guy.
Maybe it was always like this. Maybe Lincoln was running up against some busta and they were like, that dude's a wiener, go with Lincoln. Like they never cared. What if it's always been like this forever? Nobody ever cared about policy. It was just like, that dude's got a
Yeah.
big hat.
Well, no, that'd be a funny thought, but Lincoln, those presidents definitely were more involved with the
I know, I
people
was
that
just
they were.
joking.
Yeah. But we should do that more. I think that could change a lot. Like the president's kind of
Mhm.
just become like just some iconic figure that no one can touch. But like,
But I think at that time, national presidency, was treated the way we treat local government.
yeah,
We
Mhm.
treat local government and state government different. I personally think we do. I think it's treated a little differently
Yeah.
than
No, I agree.
national election and presidential election. And I think, if we held it to a higher standard, but again, how do you change people's thoughts? How do you, that's the real issue. How do you change people who are not informed and just vote by looking at a picture of a person and don't know anything
Yeah.
about them? So that's the real issue, is getting
Or
people
news
to care,
clips.
I guess. Yeah.
things that CNN posts plays over and over
Mhm.
again.
I think TV has contributed a lot to that in history. Like now that we have TV, you're able to get messages and news so fast. Internet as well. I think I read in like a history book how much TV contributed to the elections when
Nixon
debates started.
and it was
Yes,
Nixon and yeah,
when debates started being televised, right? And you saw these presidential candidates like sweating and like
Yeah.
almost
Yeah.
trembling, and so that appears to be, it's a construct, right?
Hmm.
It's this person is weak, or this person isn't leader quality or whatever,
Hmm.
and so people see these constructs and they base their decisions off what they see because of television or news or whatever. And back then, obviously you didn't have that, and so you paid more attention like you do in like you have to in local government,
Hmm.
because that's not all mainstream.
I wonder
Yeah,
though,
that's a
like,
good point.
we're not the first ones to realize that this is an issue, but why is it still an issue? Like, why is it, do you think, that it can't change? Like, we know what we're seeing on TV is bogus. They're just showing us an image to get some votes.
Because a majority of people don't think that. A majority of people are not like us. They're not critical about it. They are
Mhm.
highly susceptible to advertising. They buy into things that they see on TV, on their phones.
Yeah, and it's something that changes like that. People don't adapt to it. They stick to their old ways. They stick to what their parents taught them, how they were
Hmm.
raised. And we can go back to like how people don't really challenge their ideas.
Yeah.
They just kind of go with the flow.
Hmm.
And if it's quick and if it's fast, it's digestible, it's accessible, and someone's telling them through a
Hmm.
TV screen or through their phone, they're going to pick it up and they're going to run with it instead of really critically thinking about,
Whether or not they even agree with it.
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And that's another thing too. People assess how their friends think about it or how, people close to them think about it. They don't really think for themselves.
It's more of like an attitude than an actual thought or an
Yeah,
opinion.
it's about posturing, right? How you appear if you have this idea, and people are very careful of that. And so I don't know, maybe I'm broadly overgeneralizing, but yeah.
That could be part of the issue. That's all we see in
Yeah,
social
well,
media.
the visual component is huge because I mean, just looking at different news outlets, you see their biases.
Hmm.
You see what CNN pushes all the time. You see what Fox News pushes all the time. And people who just watch that stuff all the time, whichever one they watch, I don't know. Well, I guess because it's like a confirmation bias, then you're just watching the news that you agree with, right? But then you
Yeah.
get things like Fox News running crap on Alexandria Cortez constantly, right? Just because
Mhm.
she's good looking, like they don't give a rip what
Yeah.
she's talking about. They just run stuff on her nonstop.
Because she used to be a waiter or a waitress or
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah, whatever it is. But just because they know that their views skyrocket when they show her on TV.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Guess what that does for
exactly.
ads? What does that do for the commercial industry? What does that do for, the ads that are being played on TV at that time? So again, it just comes down to the same thing we talked about with the presidential election. It's like the money that fuels it.
Hmm.
Mhm. The system that fuels it too. I feel bad just talking shit about the whole thing
Hmm.
and not offering like a solution. So I will say, for like as a public service thing, like if you guys too, like if you ever kind of want to consider both sides of an issue or try to think more critically about something, it's good practice to get your information from a lot of different sources.
Hmm.
If you go to allsides.com, I guess I shouldn't be promoting things, but
That's okay. You dog's wearing a Nike shirt.
yeah, I'm wearing a Mariners hat. Uh, allsides.com is good because it's a website that has on their interface, right? Like on their homepage, they have, from the left, from the right, and then center. And then so you're able to get all these different perspectives.
Hmm.
And then even too, just like going on CNN, but also going on Fox or
Yeah.
whatever sides of the news that you like, it's a good idea to, get your news from a lot of different sources. And then also just looking into like there's these things called think tanks and just like organizations that are nonpartisan or impartial, some more than others, but oftentimes they have reports and they're vetted and they're peer reviewed, and so that's good practice too for people that want to go out there and just kind of research more on a topic.
Yeah.
But just
Also,
throwing it out there.
the thing that I always say, because I guess my go-to solution is to push people to actually vote, like to stop believing this lie that your vote doesn't matter, that we shouldn't be going out to vote. Like,
Yeah, and not just that, just being more informed and doing your due diligence to know why you're voting and what it is you're voting for.
I'd say that is a solid place to end this episode of Nervous Men in a $4 room.
Cool, man.
It was an exciting episode, Banjo. I'm glad you were
Thanks for
able to
having me.
come.
Yeah, this was
Richard-
great, guys.
Thanks for coming back. Well, Richard's a
Yeah,
normal.
man. Thanks for having
All
me.
right, folks. We'll see you in the next one.